everyone, and thanks for checking out my channel. I'm going to have a look at the market, checking just a couple of things across the S&P 500, US dollar, crude oil, gold, Bitcoin and coffee, just trying to get an idea as we are getting really close to some turning point on many of these charts. So let's get started with the S&P 500. So we've seen that rising move we've been in since last year, crash down to above 2,200, has now been pushing up inside some rising wedge to the end, and we did actually break out that range just actually this week, as we can see here on the daily. Now, the reason why I'm a bit cautious with that breakout is that if we look on the weekly, we need actually, we would actually need to see something a little bit more convincing on that time frame, as we can draw down here to still be inside the wedge and then not being validated. So a couple of more days to wait, see if we can actually break above 4,100 convincingly and not actually set another divergence, as we've been in for quite some times now, since pretty much the end of January this year, and now the momentum has picked up, but it's still actually below the previous high. We could still see some rejection at that level on the top of that wedge, and see continuation to the downside for some correction. I was expecting for quite some time, so around 3,500, 3,700, just to cool off some indicators. But of course, it is still possible to see some break to the upside from here, and a pickup in that momentum. So we can see on the daily, clearly the momentum has picked up as well from that divergence the price was in. We can draw up to here, and yes, it is still sitting also here below that level here. That could also call for that correction down to 3,700. So clearly watching that level now will be really key to see what will happen in the coming days. If we can see some drop, it will likely stop short below 4,000, and of course a break will open the door to some more meaningful correction down to 3,500 potentially, and unlikely to break much lower for now, except if we get some major news, of course. Looking at the USD, also turning key here. We had that break of 1.20 a few days ago, weeks actually. We set divergence, bullish divergence on that point, that actually calling for a retest of that previous support, 120. That's pretty much exactly what happened here. Seen some rejection for now. If we zoom in, sorry, you can see rejection and potentially evening star on the 4 hours. No divergence at that point, but still we are really close to major support. It's very major resistance, sorry. So very likely we could see some pullback from here, and now continuation to the downside, and the target is unchanged on this. Should we actually break 1.15, we'll definitely keep drifting lower until we reach 1.10. Very likely. So we'll see. We'll need to watch this very closely. If it does actually break higher, there's still a chance we can visit above 1.20, but I doubt we'll be able to actually break that level. If we're looking at crude oil, also still moving inside the range, we're having that really big bear flag. It's actually quite a short pole comparing to the size of the range, but we're still moving in and expecting some breakdown. We could actually revisit 50. So of course, far from done, but we're having that trend line that's capping the price and pushing in some sort of a descending triangle against 57, 58 zone. Got some nice reaction today again on the lower end of the flag, but I think the upside momentum is limited. 60 will be hard to break. Of course, if we see some break upside here, then we could actually revisit at bare minimum the top of the flag, just below 63. So it's definitely something to watch closely. Looking at gold as well at a turning point. Also, if we look on the daily, it was somehow meant to revisit that major support at 1670. So I'm not really too sure we're going to get that high. It seems a little bit stretched right now. If we zoom on the 4 hours, we can see the momentum is lacking power just after that move here, and we're having a resistance that's clearly at 1750. So it's also ranging, likely to reject at that point to revisit the lower end of the range. I would say is just below 1700, inside what could also be some sort of a really small bear flag, but more likely some range that would potentially break to the downside until we actually reach the target around 1500. Of course, we need some major development for this, like interest rate events or something like that, which could actually happen in the coming weeks. So keeping an eye on this. Should we actually break higher than 1770, that would be definitely very bullish for gold to retest at least below 1900. But I don't think that's the most likely scenario, given that the US dollar upside is quite large and downside limited. And as we can see on the market, we're also at a turning point right now. Looking at Bitcoin, that's also giving some indication about the level of speculation and how much risk traders are ready to take. At that level, of course, we're having that weekly bearish divergence dropping down. We're also having a daily bearish divergence. There's no momentum compressing under 59,000. So I doubt we'll be able to make another spike to the upside. It's still, of course, possible. We could go and visit even up to 70,000, which is the trend line we're having here, because we are now moving far away. But that drop here on 52 got major momentum. We have a hidden divergence that's actually pointing to some significant sellers forces here. And my opinion is that we're not going to make another move to the upside, but instead we're going to break lower, and potentially 32 would be a target that I think longer term is very much possible to clear up that divergence. But we could also see, if we follow the weekly one, a move that could actually go as low as reaching the other trend line that's running much lower, and that one would actually call for a revisit on 20k. Of course, this is really extremely far away objectives for now. We need to watch more closely what will happen and see if we can take other levels in between. That's not done, of course. I could still see a break out on this market, very much possible. For that, we'll need everything aligned, US dollar to actually strengthen, weaken, sorry, the market pushing higher, of course, and pretty much everything pointing to speculation to move back again on this market. And finally, having a look at coffee, because it's been an interesting market that's also at a turning key now, because we retested the 127 previous support, becoming a resistance. We are now breaking outside that channel, so that one is no longer valid, but still the target that's below 120 is still valid. And if we drop to the 1 hour, we can see here that we are now losing momentum on that move. Quite actually a sharp divergence we got on the last move. It's usually not such a good sign. This is the hourly chart, so of course can get invalidated quite easily, but this is a sell signal that we're having on coffee here, potentially unable to actually break above 128, so we should see. For now, this is holding that level quite well, but definitely keep an eye on this. My opinion is that we are going to reject somehow that level, potentially going to revisit slightly above 128 before resuming the move to the downside and break below 120. So keeping an eye on this. More interested now on coffee in long entry, as the bigger picture is bullish, my opinion, still inside that very large range we're having here that's compressing just under 140 for the big move on the breakout that could actually take the price above 180. So that could be the target for the year. And of course, we'll be watching this. Should we actually manage to break above 130, that'll be a bullish signal that the accumulation is resuming under 140, could potentially be a long entry signal. So yeah, that's about it for that check. Thanks for watching. I wish you safe trading, and I speak to you soon. Cheers, bye.